The movie begins with a tender moment shared by Nina and Madeleine, two elderly women whose quiet interaction reflects the deep and enduring nature of their relationship. Their love, though discreet, is sincere and profoundly rooted. With hope and determination, they start planning a move to Rome, searching for a place that aligns with both their dreams and financial constraints. At a neighborhood salon, Madeleine visits her daughter, Anne, who gently tends to her hair. Their conversation turns emotional when Madeleine shares her concern that her son, Frédéric, has been avoiding her. A familiar tension arises as Anne expresses her belief that her mother always favored Frédéric and questions Madeleine's silence when he accused her of being unfaithful to their father. Choosing not to reopen old wounds, Madeleine quietly replies that discussing it won't change anything. Later, Nina and Madeleine are seen slow dancing in the gentle light of their apartment, their movements speaking of deep affection and years of closeness. The next morning, Madeleine softly wakes Nina with kisses, whispering that it's time to leave. Mr. Bremont, a real estate agent, arrives to photograph Madeleine's apartment. He briefly chats with Nina, introduced merely as a kind neighbor, and leaves, unaware of the true depth of their connection. Over time, it's revealed that Nina and Madeleine have been more than just neighbors, they've shared a lifelong relationship as lovers. Madeleine has recently put her apartment on the market and received a fair offer. Eager for the future, Nina suggests they begin house hunting in Rome. Madeleine agrees, though she confesses she hasn't yet told her children about their plans. The next day, her family gathers to celebrate her birthday, oblivious to the significant change taking place in her life. Madeleine enjoys lighthearted moments with her children and grandson, savoring their closeness. Throughout the event, she searches for the right moment to share her intentions, but the words remain unspoken. Tension rises when Frédéric lashes out, accusing his mother of neglecting his father and betraying him during their marriage. He storms out, leaving a heavy silence. Anne, trying to ease the situation, promises Madeleine she'll talk to Frédéric. Later, Madeleine tells Nina that her children are supportive of the move, but this isn't true. It's a quiet lie, spoken to cover her uncertainty and fear. When Mr. Bremont calls to finalize the apartment sale, Madeleine hesitates, saying she's unsure and has just been distracted. That day, Nina and Madeleine visit a local laundry shop together. But the peaceful moment is shattered when Nina runs into Mr. Bremont, who casually mentions that Madeleine decided against selling the apartment. In that moment, everything becomes clear. Nina realizes Madeleine never told her children about their plan, never fully committed to their shared future. Shocked and hurt, Nina confronts her. Emotions erupt as Nina, her voice shaking, accuses Madeleine of always hiding behind her son and retreating from commitment. The argument intensifies until Nina leaves, overwhelmed by the painful truth left unspoken for too long. Shortly after, Nina notices the smell of something burning and rushes into the kitchen, only to find Madeleine collapsed on the floor. The gravity of the moment erases their earlier conflict. Madeleine is rushed to the hospital, where Anne informs Nina that her mother has had a stroke and is now in intensive care. Seeing Nina's exhaustion, Anne gently suggests she return home to rest. That night, unable to sleep, Nina returns to Madeleine's apartment. The silence is profound, and she spends the night surrounded by memories of their life together. The following morning, she is stirred by the sound of voices breaking the stillness. As Frédéric and Anne arrive to gather some of Madeleine's belongings, Nina quietly hides, remaining unnoticed. From her hidden spot, she overhears Anne telling Frédéric in a hushed tone that the doctors anticipate lasting effects from the stroke Madeleine may never speak again. Later, with a heavy heart, Nina visits the hospital to see Madeleine, who now lies motionless. She returns to her apartment, where hours pass in silence, broken only by the quiet sound of her own tears. When Madeleine is eventually brought home by her children, Nina watches from behind the peephole so near, yet completely excluded from the life they once hoped to share. After they leave, Nina knocks on the door, holding on to a fragile thread of hope. But it is not Madeleine who answers. Instead, her caregiver, Muriel, opens the door, now guarding the space that once belonged to both women. Nina asks to see Madeleine, but Muriel gently declines, explaining that she's already been put to bed, and suggests coming back the next day. Outwardly accepting her request, Nina leaves, but unable to let go, she returns later that night. Stepping quietly through the familiar space, she finds Madeleine asleep. With a mix of remorse and love, Nina softly apologizes for the painful words exchanged during their last fight. She kisses Madeleine gently on the forehead before slipping away once more into the night. The next morning, Nina returns with croissants, a quiet gesture of reconciliation. Muriel lets her in, and Nina greets Madeleine warmly, searching her face for any sign of recognition. She offers to help, but Muriel politely refuses, saying that Anne comes every morning to assist. However, her tone softens as she adds that there's a chance Madeleine could regain some movement. Almost as if in response, Madeleine knocks a bowl off the table, a small but powerful gesture of silent presence and will. Undeterred, Nina offers again to help with Madeleine's care, but Muriel declines firmly, maintaining her boundaries. As days pass, Nina's determination only grows stronger. She turns to Anne with the same offer, and this time, Anne agrees. Muriel is clearly unhappy but remains silent, her disapproval heavy in the air. One afternoon, while Muriel is out shopping, Nina slips into the apartment. Sitting by Madeleine's side, she begins to speak not just words, but stories, memories. She revisits moments they once shared, secret laughter, hidden dances, the quiet love they were forced to live in private. Then, something remarkable happens. Madeleine slowly rises to her feet, unsteady but on her own. Nina watches in awe as a glimmer of hope returns. When Muriel returns to find them together, the boundaries between caregiver and partner blur. After a tense moment, they come to an agreement. Nina will pay Muriel monthly in exchange for taking over as Madeleine's primary caregiver. The following morning, Madeleine goes missing. Nina, Anne, and Muriel search frantically until Anne gets a phone call leading them to a park, where they find Madeleine sitting alone on a bench. Afterward, they fire Muriel for failing to lock the door. From then on, Nina helps Anne look after Madeleine. During this time, they talk about Nina's job as a tour guide and why she stayed in France. Madeleine quietly listens to their conversations. While going through old belongings, Anne comes across a photo of a young Madeleine and Nina in Rome, sparking her curiosity. Later that day, Madeleine appears at Nina's door, but is gently led back to her apartment by Anne. Anne then looks through Nina's old photo albums. That night, Anne finds Madeleine packing her bags. She calms her down and helps her get back to sleep. Later, Nina comes to spend the night next to Madeleine. The next morning, Anne finds her there and tells her to leave. Days later, Nina sees workers changing the lock on Madeleine's door and realizes they've moved. She tries calling Anne, but receives no answer. Muriel then shows up with her son and threatens Nina. Anne has placed a deeply unhappy Madeleine in a hospital. Frederick urges Anne to bring their mother home and hire a new caregiver, which leads Anne to break down and confess the truth to him. That night, Nina visits Anne and Frederick and reveals that Madeleine never loved their father and had planned to leave with her. They tell her to leave, but in frustration, Nina throws a stone at their window. Anne later visits a despondent Madeleine in the hospital. Soon after, Madeleine uses the hospital phone to call Nina. When a nurse informs Nina that the call was made in error, Nina immediately heads to the hospital. Through a window, Anne watches as Nina arrives and takes Madeleine away. Nina reassures Madeleine that they will go to Rome using the money they saved. However, when they arrive at their apartment, they find it has been robbed, likely by Muriel and her son. As Anne arrives in her car, Madeleine sees her from the balcony and quietly closes the door. The film ends with Anne outside, asking them to open the door, while inside, Nina tearfully dances with Madeleine, holding her close.